Hello and welcome. Today, I'm analyzing David POPOVICI, the Olympic champion of the 200-meter freestyle at the 2024 Paris Olympics. Beyond his fluid stroke, movement economy, and apparent ease in the water, one striking feature is his rhythmic breathing pattern. He alternates, submerging on one stroke, rising and inhaling on the next. Here, he submerges. He rises. This rhythmic rise and fall is what the Anglo-Saxons refer to as the gallop stroke. If you slow down the footage, you'll notice that David rises quite early relative to when he actually inhales. I'll delve deeper into this in the second part of this video, where we'll explore the fluidity of his swimming, the forward recovery of the arms, the catch phase, essentially everything that happens underwater. But for now, let's focus on his projectile body motion, his streamline, and his breathing technique. You can observe in his stroke that he maintains alignment from head to toe, effectively elongating his body from the nape to the toes. This alignment is particularly evident in the underwater views, and another notable aspect is his flat body posture. This alignment significantly reduces drag, minimizing resistance as much as possible. Each time he breathes in, he then resubmerges to further decrease resistance and restabilize his position horizontally. When he inhales here, followed by submerging again, wave resistance is effectively eliminated because he moves below the water surface. Ideally, I should have put the line slightly below the waterline to indicate his position just under the surface. This realignment under the surface allows him to keep his heels high, minimizing resistance and enabling water to flow smoothly from the nape of his neck along his body. This helps him pass through the water and, as I was saying, quickly return to his optimal horizontal position. And that's a crucial aspect. Notice how he's excellent on this point. He inhales here, he's already submerging again while he hasn't put his head back on completely, and his arm hasn't even reached the shoulder vertical. So he's really inhaling at the very beginning of the aerial return. This requires strong inspiratory capacity, the ability to quickly draw in the necessary air volume. From this angle you can see it clearly. There he's inhaling and boom, he's already resubmerging. His inhalation is completed swiftly, which is essential for easily returning to a horizontal position without needing excessive leg kicks to maintain it. The first key is to breathe in quickly to re-immerse quickly when you rise so much. Because at the back, you need a good kick to keep your hips and kick at the surface of the water during this inhalation phase, and so you need to keep your upper body as horizontal as possible, emerging from the water to inhale. As he resubmerges, he then realigns from head to toe. Watch how, boom, his head is realigned by the time his hand touches the water. This synchronization is vital for efficient swimming and minimizing drag, and so, to go up so much on inhalation, you need to have a good kick behind you. As I was saying, this helps keep the pelvis close to the water's surface. Observing the kick with heels breaking the surface illustrates good horizontal alignment. Viewing this from above the water, you see his legs beating on the surface of the water, so that means he's managing to maintain this horizontality despite his inhalation. All the more so during this time, he has the arm staying above the water and the arm fully entering the water at the same time. And you can see it even better in this underwater view where you can clearly see that the hand, forearm and arm enter the water at the same time. And so it really requires good muscular control because this moment, this propulsive dead time, this inhalation which is on a motor dead time, it requires being able to keep this arm as a projectile for more or less time depending on its stroke rate. Arm will be used in linking back up on a propulsive movement there as he does, with an orientation of the forearm and hand perpendicular or almost perpendicular to the surface of the water to then move the water backwards and therefore propel himself after this propulsive idle time. When you're losing speed like here, you need to be able to re-accelerate. So the advantage of rising on the inhalation is that it's easier to re-immerse after, because when you emerge, you're going to dive back in the water. It's a purely physical principle. Gravity dictates it. So, let's break it down into 3 key lessons. First up, you're going to need a massive kick to back up that rise during your inhalation. Second, you've got to keep your arm extended like a projectile, super easy when you're breathing in, especially when your arm's above water. And third, you need to master quick inhaling right at the start of your arm recovery so you can dive back down swiftly. So now let's move on to the strokes. To begin with, the fact that he is inhaling to the right means that his left arm stays a little longer, as I was saying, as a projectile in front of him during inhalation, as you can see right here. And that right arm, given that you've got a principle of aerial return launched, comes back more quickly than what happens underwater. This means that both arms are in front of the shoulders at any given moment, so we're really on a pronounced FQS coordination on this side, and given that he's breathing in each 2 strokes, on the other side we'll see that the FQS is going to be much less pronounced because here he's already starting to orientate his propulsive surfaces. I wanted to put a circle on it, but it's the same principle. He's already starting to orientate his catch on the start of the recovery of the other arm. We can see here that he's starting to pull, even though his arm hasn't yet entered the water. So, as I was saying just now, he has a big catch on the left arm, so we'll start with this arm here. Just after inhalation here, he's got the arm there in front. He'll bend the forearm on the arm to orient his propulsive surfaces, the hand and forearm in the direction of the feet towards the rear, to move forward with the action-reaction principle towards the front. Then he pulls accelerating. Then the hand passes vertical to the shoulder to create what I call momentum. Here, the arm is positioned correctly to push masses of water backwards, and then really push towards the feet to move forward with the arm as a projectile in front of it, putting itself on the edge to offer as little resistance as possible to the forward resistance. And what happens underwater is bound to be linked to what happens above the water, the recovery. So what we see is that the returns are launched, which means that the arm recoveries will spend less time above the water and more time in the water. What's the point? To maintain body balance easier and have a better horizontality without having to use much more kicking. In short, to have the heels and pelvis more easily maintained on the surface without having to spend extra energy. So let's take a look at what's going on in terms of coordination in relation to the arm recovery phase. Here, there's inhalation, so there's projectile arm, there's a return of the other arm above the water, there's a strong beat kick here that starts with the left leg, and then there's what happens, there's a catch, there's a strong kick. So just after the catch or during the catch, there's the second half of the recovery, or at any rate, the end of the aerial return when the arm enters the water faster. With this end of recovery faster, the propulsive stroke is more intense, more accelerated. This helps to facilitate all this. And that's where everything really comes together, everything coordinates. You can concentrate as well, at least at the beginning, on propulsion and propulsive surfaces, and as you progress, you'll also concentrate on the recovery timing. To send the arm a little faster on this second part of the return, or on this last quarter of the return, to succeed in accelerating the arm movement underwater without having to think about it. And what's going to be important on these arm recoveries is to really get them forward. And that's where David POPOVICI's high elbow return is interesting, because the fact of having this high elbow on this first half of the return really anchors where the swimmer's front is. That is really above the head compared to an earthman. And that's where you need to reprogram your GPS to get a better idea of how you're positioned in the water and succeed in sending your arms where you want. It sounds simple when you put it like that, but when you're in the water, and especially when you're a late starter, it's not as easy as all that. Now let's focus on propulsion in the right arm. Here, if I go back a little, he inhales, his right arm moves into place, then engages well in front of him, placing himself on the edge. Then there's a catch. Here the hand passes on the vertical of the shoulder, exactly as on the right arm, and pushes back towards the feet at the end of the push. But let's change the angle, and what happens here is that his right arm is a little less well oriented than his left. So here, he has its catch built like this. So of course he grabs water. But it also coincides with the moment when the body goes up. So that means that his catch is oriented this way, and we look at what he's doing at the elbow level, at the hand level. At the start, he pushes slightly downwards on this part, and if you look closely at the leg kick, the strong time of the kick, it's going to be on the other side, on the right leg, and it's going to coincide with the start of his real pull backwards, because from then on, the elbow translates backwards with the hand and forearm to push masses of water backwards and move forwards, as I was saying earlier. So we have a little downward part to go up, to emerge, to inhale, and then we have a part towards the back to propel himself forward. So that doesn't mean that by pushing down a little, it doesn't also pull towards the back. Of course it does. But it does mean that when we look at the coordination of all parts, on one hand it will be different, as I was saying, if we just look at the right arm and the left arm. But on the other hand, if we see the kick timing, we also see the same pattern. Let me explain. There's always a strong kick for each arm movement. So, between the right and left arms, we see the same pattern. And on the right arm stroke, we note the strong kick is initiated a bit later compared to the left arm. You can see that it's set slightly later, and it coincides well with the moment he decides to pull backwards 100%. So who's up next for analysis? I've got Phelps and Ledecky lined up, but I'm open to suggestions. Drop your picks in the comments below. And on that note, I wish you excellent progress. As usual, I've included a link in the description to the Magic Palm exercise with Sensory Week, so that you too can swim with more feelings with the water while making less and less effort.